It's nice to be back at least before the semester ends. Endings are of two phases. Sometimes they are happy and sometimes they are sad. But one truth between them prevails. Whether you like it or not, there will be endings. Practically, this topic is what we'll be dealing here in your last philosophy module, the human beings as oriented towards their impending death. To begin with, I will be presenting to you 5 questions related to our topic in this video lesson. Kindly get a piece of paper to write onto. Each questions will be flashed on the screen. Write only the letter of your choice, and you will be given 5 seconds to answer each question. Okay, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Just complete this statement. A life review is a process of letter A, reminiscence in order to determine the significance of one's life. Letter B, examining one's strategic moves in a popular board game. Letter C, critiquing a pictorial magazine. And letter D, comparison taste testing breakfast cereals. The correct answer is letter A, reminiscence in order to determine the significance of one's life. Okay, number 2. The following are some existential realities of death according to Heidegger, except A, death is certain, our utmost possibility. Letter B, death is definite. Letter C, death is one's property. And letter D, death is non-relational. The answer is letter B, death is definite. For questions number 3 and 4, okay, I will read this quotation from Epicurus. This has something to do with this quotation. Death, therefore, the most awful of evils, is nothing to us, seeing that when we are, death is not come. And when death is come, we are not. It is nothing then, either to the living or to the dead. For with the living, it is not, and the dead exists is no longer. Okay, question number 3. In that quote, Epicurus is trying to show that letter A, death should not be feared. Letter B, we should be able to enjoy life even though death comes at the end. Letter C, what most people consider a great evil is really nothing. And letter D, all of this. Okay, and the answer is letter D, all of this. Question number 4. The author of the quote is obviously A, does not believe in any kind of immortality, heaven or hell. Letter B, the author is worried about whether he will go to heaven. Letter C, the author is not Thomas Aquinas. And letter D, the author is Epicurus. And the answer is letter B, is worried about whether he will go to heaven. Question number 5. What was the influential book that Martin Heidegger made that signifies life and death? Letter A, life and being. B, being and time. Letter C, a treatise of human nature. And letter D, either or. And the answer is letter B, being and time. Okay, I hope you were able to answer all the questions correctly. But if not, it's alright. Like we always do during the video lessons I presented to you last quarter, we will be guided by the MELCs of this course, specifically those which pertain to this module. And we have two MELCs. Number 1, enumerate the objectives you really want to achieve and to define the projects you really want to do in your life. And number 2, reflect on the meaning of your own life. Our life is full of questions and most of our questions remain unanswered. We ask the questions about our existence, where we came from, and where will we be when we die. These important questions bother us so much that in some ways, we would try not to think of it as if it's just something unrelated, something unnecessary, something unimportant, and something which does not make any sense at all. In short, iniiwasan natin ang topic na ito. So why would we bother thinking about these questions? Yet the problem here is that we cannot avoid asking questions kasi nga, tao tayo. At isang katangian ng taong pagtatanong dahil marami tayong gustong malaman at maunawaan. In fact, marami pa nga tayong hindi lubos na nauunawaan kahit sa mga panahon ngayon. We may know ourselves as how we function in this world, but ultimately, we will never understand our whole self as we are. A lot of people are scared of death, or about death rather. In fact, by just the thought of it, most people often do a knock on the wood just to get rid of the idea or that it may not happen at this very moment. But what is actually death? Generally, death simply means the cessation of life. In fact, dagdag pa nila na kailangan ay may absence of natural respiratory functions and attempts at resuscitation would not be successful in restoring those functions. Ito yung legal and medical definition ng kamatayan. Pero ang tanong natin dito ay, bakit natin kinatatakutan ng kamatayan? Ano ang mayroon sa kamatayan para katakutan natin ito? That is a phenomenon that, whether we like it or not, will confront us all. Sciences, religion, and philosophy try to provide us with answers to the perennial questions about this phenomenon. Yet, no absolute answers are actually given. Kaya nga hanggang ngayon, sa topic natin na ito ay tinatanong pa din natin, di ba? In the book of Erwin W. Lutzer entitled 1 Minute After You Die, the author presented various perspectives about the reality of death. For example, there are claims of those people who have somehow had near-death experiences that they saw a certain kind of light and they followed it. And the next thing they knew was they were back to life. There are, however, some skeptics. Ito yung mga nagdududa lalo na yung nasa field ng psychology. Para kasi sa karamihan sa mga psychologists, these so-called near-death experiences are actually mental processes of a somehow memories of the person or a wishful thought about living. But, as philosophers, we are open to possibilities even if the events present something impossible, such as the belief in the life after death. Otherwise, our earthly life will be reduced to something mechanical, which is tantamount to being meaningless. Further, that presents to us some sort of uncertainties, which makes people to fear death because of the questions such as, what lies beyond death? Ano ba ang meron pagkatapos nating mamatay? In fact, Heidegger believes that our fear of death is actually fear about the nothingness that lies beyond death, since literally no one who has died has ever come back to life and vividly described to us what was there beyond death. For Christians and other Abrahamic religions, the fear of banishment in hell as one's punishment for sins is also one reason why people fear death. But as philosophers, we may ask, what really is death as it is in itself? And what is in death that we really fear? To provide us somehow of answers, we will try to dig into the mind of Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher who is famous for his philosophy of death in his book Being and Time. Heidegger pointed out the 5 existential reality of death, which are all connected and intertwined. Number 1, death is certain, is utmost possibility, is our utmost possibility. As soon as man comes to life, he is at once old enough to die. These words of Heidegger gives us one of the appalling truths about the reality of death. Death is certain. In fact, it is much more certain than life. Our being thrown into this world, as Heidegger puts it, was our very experience of being there. Or in ordinary words, our very experience of existence. Our existence in this world gives us so many uncertainties, yet there is one most certain of all possibilities, that we will all die. The second one is, death is indefinite. While death is the most certain of all, it is however indefinite. Yes, we will all die, but when and how? Kailan at paano? This is something indefinite. That is the not yet, but at the same time, the already is at hand. In fact, ang sabi nga ni Heidegger, we are being towards death. Ipinanganak tayo at lahat tayong nabubuhay ay patungo sa Kanya. Kanya-kanya nating kamatayan. Ipinanganak tayo, ulitin ko, at lahat tayong nabubuhay ay patungo sa kanya-kanyang kamatayan. Okay, number 3, death is one's property. As clearly explained in your module, the death of the person belongs to him. Nobody can experience his death except himself. There can be no proxies or substitutes for a person in experiencing death. Hindi naman pwedeng ay pa-experience naman ng death mo. Bakit? Dahil kapag halimbawa ikaw ang namatay, ang kamatayan mo ay sa iyo lang. In short, my death is my own, but not yours. And your death is yours, but not mine. Okay, number 4. Death is non-relational. Corollary to that, as one's own property, death is also non-relational. When we die alone. We have no choice but to face it on our own. That also removes all our relations to others. In contemplating death, we realize our own individuality and independence from the world. And lastly, number 5, death is not to be outstripped. Okay. Finally, since death is personal and non-relational, therefore it cannot be taken away from a person. It is always, I will die because my death is my own and no one can die for me. This reality cannot be taken away from me. So when I die, it is me who is dying. It is me who is experiencing death. It is me who is experiencing the utmost possibility. Now, here is the question, if I was born just to die in the end, what then is the meaning of my existence? Both the existentialist Heidegger and Soren Kierkegaard would say that we will only realize the meaning of life through the reality of death. That without death, then there is no meaning in life. This too comprises the phases of a coin. Alam niyo yung coin? This is somewhat similar to the saying that the absence of a person makes the heart go ponder, which means that we realize the value of a person when he is gone. This brings us to the challenge of living in authenticity. Since my death is always my own, then it follows that my life is also my own. Now, This is where Heidegger's notion of care comes in, and similarly, Kierkegaard's notion of living living an authentic life, which can be deduced simply to being responsible to one's own existence. Therefore, it is my responsibility to take care of my life, not just simply blindly following the anonymous day, but to be critical and vigilant even to the point of going against them when necessary. Okay, for example, if your barkadas, they are your anonymous day, are inviting you to smoke cigar and drink alcohol, because by doing so, you will become into the group. Doesn't mean that you ought to just go with the flow and do what they wanted you to do. If you follow them, Kierkegaard believes that you are not being authentic to yourself, but you are actually living within the expectations of your barkadas. Similarly, Heidegger will say that you are not really taking care of your life, since you only become one like the many and simply adhered to their expectations. Okay, let's just put it this way. Socrates once said that the unexamined life is not worth living, which means that if you will just live without reflecting about what you are doing in your life, then your life is meaningless. When you die, your death becomes meaningless as well. Now, you can see that connection between the two. To live a meaningful life is to die a meaningful death. Ulitin ko, to live a meaningful life is to die with meaningful death. For your reflection, here's what you will do. With a minimum of 100 words, answer the following questions. Write your answers on a clean piece of paper to be submitted as part of your output in your module 4. Number 1, what are the 3 things that you want to achieve in your life? Okay, kindly explain each one. Number 2, if you're going to examine your own life at this point, can you say that you are living an authentic life? Well, that's it, guys. That ends up our lesson in philosophy for this semester. I do hope that despite the so many learning challenges brought about by the modular distance learning, you still were able to learn something from the course. Let me end with a quote from St. John Paul II. Have no fear of moving into the unknown. Simply step out fearlessly, knowing that I am with you. Therefore, no harm can befall you. All is very, very well. Do this in complete faith and confidence.